Oh, yes. This unlawful staking of money or something of value on the happening of an uncertain event, or on the ascertainment of a fact in dispute. Yes. Somebody didn't bet on the outcome of the trial, did they? Oh, you know, I'm wanting to not have any sort of protection or no, well, I don't want a protection order either, but I don't want any personal recognizance, and you would think I'd have the right to know that. Yes. Now, when it said that it was sealed, yes. And I looked online. Pooch. Do I still have to go to court or don't I? Now, well, if I don't, then I don't. Then there's no personal recognizance, right? There's that life, liberty, and property. Poop. Now, I'm wanting to know where my sons are at, and I've documented certain crimes. Yes. And I haven't gotten any phone calls, and it's 10:40 in the morning. Pooh. As much as you might think that I like walking around in 50-degree weather. Pooh. I really don't. I'd rather be in a hotel right now, in a big bed, after taking a bath. And I thought about taking a shower, but I don't have access to my own clothes. So do I take a shower and shave and then put on the same clothes, or do I wait for police? Seems like you enjoy victimizing American citizens. Yes. You don't think it's a burglary to break into a house, go through all my personal possessions, harassment. Ooch. Well, I told you I was going to sleep there that night. You went back the next day while I was pruning bushes. And then you went back after I had put the videos online and decided to lock the place up. Yes. Now, I that first night when it was locked up. Yes. They have what's known as the Oregon State Training Manual for those that are police officers. I look for a Washington State Training Manual. What happens when you receive the actual documentation of a trespass? Right, a burglary. Yes. Somebody going through all the personal possessions of the individuals that were living in that house. Yes. Now there was page 70. There's tenant versus criminal trespass. I'm not a squatter, okay? I moved there to do some work, and I made sure that the renter had a rental agreement. The renter, right, had a medical emergency. Nothing I could do about it. He never told me that I had to move, and I did. Well, he explained to me that I can have visitors, for 2 weeks, unless, of course, I was staying there to do work on the place, and I was going to do work in exchange for some place to sleep. Yes. Now, I am a guest of his, but more than that, I'm a co-worker, and I actually did pick up some sandpaper. Ooch. And there are a few other tools that, well, the agreement was we'd do some painting. We'd paint all the rooms, and we'd get, well, we're going to fix the place up. That's why I was living there. Now, this was kind of it was an agreement, but he had a medical emergency, so I wasn't squatting. Right. And I wasn't a guest like, well, you don't have to do any work to live here, but you kind of do. Now, I'm just waiting for him to get better. Okay. And I want the best for him. Yes, he does. So, what is the difference between a tenant and criminal trespass? Right. On the first night that I stayed up all night, there's the maybe you couldn't read it. It was dark that night. The officer understands landlord-tenant issues. Right. The eviction process. I mentioned once in a video that if you're going to evict a renter while they are going through a medical emergency, there's a problem with that, right? You don't take their own personal mail, steal it, possess it, and then write on the back of it, get the fuck out, the police are watching. That is not the eviction process to remove a tenant from a house. Yes. And then there's the notices. Yes, the notices. I didn't see any notice on the door, and pretty much every day for 5 weeks. Yes. I'd get back there about 8:30 at night. I'd look on the front door. I didn't see any notices. No, there was no notices. The summons and the complaints. Yes. I didn't see any summons. Didn't see any complaints. Now, if he sent it in the mail, he did get his mail on the 12th. Yes. Because I looked at my call log and I noticed that he had put all the mail in the house on the wood stove. So if you had sent him a summons or subpoena or notice in the mail, pooch, at that address, he probably would have let me know that day. He might have left me a voicemail. Paul, I got a summons that I'm being evicted and I have a court hearing in the next 2 weeks. But I didn't get that kind of voicemail. No, he didn't. Then there are the hearings. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I had open heart surgery and I'm in rehabilitation in a very fine Fifth Avenue. Ooch, one of those premier locations for those that are in rehabilitation. And then there's a notice of restitution. Well, you didn't pay the rent last month, and as I understand it, might have been $100 a month. See, the agreement was we do the work, yes. And once we got the place fixed up, and they got the hot water heater working, and they got the refrigerator and the stove in, and it was all cleaned up, yes, yes, yes. Then there would be an actual rent, and I thought $750 a month was fair. Yes, he did. Get the heating going, the water going, the electricity going. Yes. See, we left the electricity off while we were working in there so as to not electrocute ourselves. Good for you. Good for you. And then the restitution. Oh, I think he did actually pay the rent, but I'm not sure about it. Yes. Then there's that writ of execution that happens from a judge. Yes, it does. Any individual that thought you can just bag up somebody else's stuff because of those garbage bags that were in there when I went there after I'd done my laundry that day. Yes. You just can't throw people out. Pooch! And then there's that 3-day evict or trespass. Yes. And then there's the property disposal. Now, all of my property happens to be in that place, and I thought if I could get the key from Ron, yeah, I could just unlock the door. I could continue to sleep there until he's well enough that he could go back, and then we can continue with what we had planned on doing. Yes. Because I didn't move there. I didn't move there unless he had actually shown me the rental agreement. Yes. And he didn't know he was going to have a medical emergency. I mean, how could he know that? How could anybody know when they're going to have a medical emergency? And I thought, well, as soon as the police department, they'd want to make sure that I get a key so I could get back in and I could stay there until Ron Oh, you forgot about that day that I had to stay up all night. Now, the officer understands landlord-tenant issues. You cannot steal the mail. Yes, possess it, write on it, pooch, stick it outside the door, ouch, and then decide you're not going to enforce the fucking law today.